Hi, everyone, and welcome to the WIM podcast. Women in Influencer Marketing is a first of its kind exclusive networking group made up of inspirational women. This podcast is where we explore influencer marketing and get real about women in business. Find us wherever you download podcasts, and of course, you can always find us at iamwim.com. That's iamwim.com. Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Women in Influencer Marketing podcast. My name is Jessie Grossman. If you are new to this show, huge welcome. I hope I don't weird you out enough and that you stay. And if you have continued to listen to the show, you're my kind of people. I'm super excited. This is a really big month for us. We just came off of having a huge, fun, enthusiastic, and vibrant IRL event here in New York City. Earlier this month, we had to cap it at 50 women because paying for 50 women at a really expensive restaurant in New York City is hella expensive. But shout out to Budokan because the venue was absolutely beautiful and the team was really top notch. And then at the end of this month, because I wanted to pack it in, on the 25th, we have this big virtual event called the Best in Influencer Tech event. So I am swamped. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's taken me days to record this podcast, and I don't know why it's been giving me anxiety. I think it's like all the things that are just like pending in my life are culminating. They're like piling on, and things are just getting a little nutty. But I talk to so many of you on a regular basis. If you're a member of WIM, I'm like touching base and I'm asking you guys how you're feeling. And it's making me feel a little bit better than it seems like everyone is feeling overwhelmed. I was telling someone yesterday, though, I was like, I wish there was this sweet spot between feeling fulfilled and energized and busy, but not too busy and overwhelmed and like anxiety laden. So I feel like that's the key to life, guys, is like finding that sweet spot. I'm still on the quest. Anyways, this episode is going to be a little different since the holidays are approaching and I feel like a lot of you guys are wanting like more value driven content. I am going to be sharing more about like my favorite tools, my favorite products, my favorite sources of information. You know, we have an event every single Thursday where we share the latest influencer marketing and social media news, and we do it live. And I'm not writing the news. Like, I'm not a news reporter. I'm gathering up a bunch of my favorite news resources like Business Insider, Ad Age, Adweek, The Information, and a ton others, Mashable, and bringing it to you guys. And a lot of you say, like, where do you get your news from? I would love to just sort of like be in the know. It's great to attend your show, but like if I can't, where can I find them? So I'm sharing information like that. Also, whenever I find a solid piece of technology, which means I have to like thoroughly vet it first, I want to give it to you guys so you guys know what's the best out there that you should be trying out. So, in that spirit, I'm bringing you guys today an incredible tool that I am so genuinely enthusiastic about. Before I get into the tool, though, let me share a little bit more about Lumanu. So, cut to, I want to say it was March of 2020, the month that COVID and lockdown happened. But right before it did, I was actually in LA on a work trip attending a conference. And that is where I met up with someone who I'd met in New York. His name is Tony Tran. So if any of you guys are not familiar with Tony, and you know, I like stick to mentioning women on this podcast, but he's one of the few guys who I'm like, no, you really got to know Tony. I know I always talk about women on the show and I'm about promoting us as much as possible. I wanted to bring up Tony because he is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Lumanu. So we had been introduced years ago, and he actually came to my office in New York through Camille Lee, who has done tons of stuff in the industry. She used to be the CEO of a company called Activate, and now she's gone on and has created her own like sleep products called Proper. Shout out to Camille. So every time I meet up with Tony, I'm so impressed. I hope he's listening to this because it's so genuine and he should receive the compliment. He is a very smart guy. He's also like this sweet spot between technology minded, but also understands the creator economy and influencer marketing in a way that most technologists don't. That is a very rare combination. So we were just sort of chatting and he was giving me an update on where Lumanu is. And at the time, they were like the go-to source for all things whitelisting. Whitelisting was and pretty much still is for a lot of people, this like amorphous, very complicated concept. Like I know how to hire influencers and have them create great content, but if I want that content to take on an additional life of its own through whitelisting, a lot of people know that that's possible, but they don't know how to do it. And so he came in with Lumanu and his team and like really owned that space. They simplified whitelisting and they really made it available for the masses. And a lot of people took notice. And most people, I would venture to say, know Lumanu for that. Well, now cut to present day. A couple months ago, I reconnected with Tony because I'm always wanting to know what he's up to. And he was sort of sharing with me how Lumanu has added an additional suite of services to their company. And so now Lumanu brilliantly is focusing on creator payments. I just think it's brilliant for a number of reasons. Number one, waitlisting was a huge problem and they went after that and went to solve it. Creator payments, hello, you guys know how much of a problem that is. Whether if you're on the talent management side, every payment is late. And every time we invoice for a net 30, we're lucky if we get it net 60. Like, let's be real. If you're on the brand side or the agency side, trying to pay creators at scale feels impossible. I'm chasing paperwork that I just need you to fill out. Don't you want to get paid? And like managing that whole process is an entire job of its own. And no one enjoys it. I don't know about you, but it's always been my least favorite part of doing influencer marketing is like the financials of it all. And so they took on that challenge. And Tony was sort of catching me up and talking to me about their new services around creator payments. And I was like, dude, if you actually were able to solve this problem, that's freaking huge. So he's like, I really feel confident that we have. So he introduced me to someone else on his team who a few days later walked me through a demo of the product. And y'all, I've had Lumanu ever since. I am a real customer. And it's one of the few tools that I will like shout from the rooftops and tell you how good it is because A, it solves a real challenging problem. And B, they do it in a really simple way, which I love. There are certain tools that like can have all the bells and whistles and whatever, but Lumanu is actually like very simple and succinctly solves the payment problem. So if you are not watching this podcast, but you're listening, I'll try to describe what I'm going to be showing on my screen in just a second as much as humanly possible. But I do highly recommend either watching us on YouTube or watching this episode on Spotify because both will show the screen share that I'm about to do. So I'm going to take a couple minutes and just like walk you through my Lumanu dashboard and kind of like show you what it's all about. This is the Lumanu dashboard. So first of all, you can get all of your contacts in here by simply clicking the invite button and sending them your unique link. You can copy the link, you just send it to them, and it makes it so easy for them to just like get into the system. That's one way of doing it. You can also export and download your contact list to use it elsewhere. What I do like is that one of the big things that I love about Lumanu right now is that there's a ton of integrations. There's ways for it just to like live on its own, but also can integrate with like whatever system you currently use, whether it's like QuickBooks or Zapier, like all the systems that are sort of like non negotiables for me, they integrate with. Or, by the way, to import, you can also just like type in a person's name once they're in your contacts to be able to search for them, or you can search by their handle, which is pretty cool. So, another way to get them into your system is simply by invoicing them. Right now, you can see that I'm owed like $3,500. So I don't want to show you that information, but if I clicked unpaid here, it would pop up all my unpaid invoices. You can also filter by early pay, which I'm going to explain in just a few minutes. And that is the cherry on top of this whole system. Just wait for that. All right. So if you want to create an invoice, you just call it like whatever partnership it is, and then you say, it could default to net 30, 60, 90, but you can also just do custom. Because let's say it's like, maybe it's like net 45. That's a more common one. Or it's like net 30 from when I signed the contract, but I forgot to send the invoice out yesterday. So it's actually like net 29. And I don't want to give them that extra day. So, anyways, you click whatever's applicable to you also. Very nice. Because who likes to do math? They actually put the date underneath there for you, which I personally find very helpful. Then you put, who you're invoicing, what their company is, and then their email address. And this is that last way that you can get people into your system. So once they've been invoiced, you can more easily invoice them the next time, which is great. You can add the address and phone number, but you don't need to. So it could just be this information. Like, in my opinion, the less the better. Like, I don't need a record of people's phone numbers and addresses. It's like a little old school. So then you just put what it is, right? And like your phraseology, is that the word? Like your terminology. So, like, if it's this creator with Google, you would put that. But sometimes people want to put like, post one, post two, post three, etc. And you can add as many items as you want. Plus, maybe you want like it itemized because this is for the post and this is for a reimbursement of like when they bought product on their own or something. So I think that's pretty cool. You can easily remove them if you make a mistake. And then it shows here the total, which is $5,100. If you have a PO number to add, you just put that there. If there are specific notes you want to add, like thanks for working with us, or, whatever important thing you need to add, it says public notes. So that is for everybody. And then one other thing that's pretty cool is that you can add an email recipient in addition to the person that's being invoiced. So maybe you're invoicing like accounting at google.com, but Jane Smith is the person that you're speaking with. So you can add both of them to this email just for like max visibility. All right, here is a super dope, like hot tip number one of Lumanu. They have the ability to split payments, which is such a specific influencer problem that they solve. Because in most instances, when you have a creator that, like, I don't know, I swear to God, they have over like 10,000 followers lately, they have management. And so instead of, if you're a manager invoicing the whole thing and then having to like have that extra step times your whole roster to be able to split the payment and pay the influencer after that, you can add a payment recipient right here, which would be your influencer. They'd have to already be in your system. And you could say, like, this person will get 80% and I will get 20%. And when this invoice is paid out, you don't have to do that extra step. It automatically knows to pay 80% to that person and 20% to you. This is a huge time saver. So, split payments, while it says it's optional, if you're a talent manager or you're a brand who's paying an influencer who has a talent manager, highly recommend using it, because maybe this just saves you a few minutes, but that times how many influencers and managers you're working with, or brands that you're working with. If you're a manager, like, obviously you get the point. It's a huge, huge time suck. All right. So then you easily send the invoice. You can save a draft if you need more information later. You can preview the invoice, like visually appealing. The email version, I kind of love Lumanu's new branding. It's like this bright green. So it's like eye catching, but simple and to the point because let's be real, we need an invoice to just clearly display the information. One other thing that I really like in the invoicing piece is that once you have an invoice, you can also copy it, which is awesome if you have, 50% of the payment needs to be upfront and 50% later on. You can just easily copy the details, change up what you need to make it part two of two, and then send that off or keep it in drafts because maybe you want it to be in drafts on purpose so that when the last post goes live, you simply open up the draft like so and then send the invoice. Oh my God, it's so easy, guys. All right. So then I'm going to show you the payment piece of it. So this is the other side of it, but it's applicable to like most of you guys listening, regardless of what side of the equation you're on. So from here, if you are invoiced from Lumanu, all of the payment requests come through here. So you'll be able to go through them and basically click, 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 and then click issue payment. And it's that simple. You can also send payment directly from here. So if you're working with freelancers, for example, that's such a good use case, or you just need to pay an influencer for a one-time thing and you don't necessarily need an invoice to do so, you just simply search for their name here. It's their name, email, or username. They show up and it's like a better version of like Venmo. Consider it like a Venmo or like a Zelle because everything is in one place. Like that's the biggest thing that I think is huge. So I also know that I mentioned earlier about early pay, and I wanted to show you a little bit of that from their main site. So early pay is where your talent gets access to Lumanu Early Pay, which allows you to pay on your own terms and maximize cash flow. So let me tell you a bit more about how Early Pay works. So Early Pay, if you are a talent manager in particular, is a huge game changer. So I know because I'm a former talent manager and agency owner that your talent management is freaking out at you all the time saying, where's my money? Why is it late? What's the update with this, et cetera, et cetera. It's like a nightmare because you're having to manage them and manage the people who are paying. And there's so many balls up in the air and there's a lot of noise. So what Early Pay allows you to do is Lumanu essentially takes on the burden of whether the money is going to arrive on time or not. They charge a small fee and pay you early so that essentially your talent feels as if they are always paid on time. Number one, this helps with cash flow. Number two, this helps with time management because again, you're not having to constantly have these conversations with your talent because they're asking, when is it due? Can I follow up? Are you going to follow up? It's like a nightmare. So early pay is such a great solution. Another thing that I do want to mention about early pay and why it's particularly awesome for talent managers or talent, I guess, if you're an influencer listening to this, is because you can negotiate that fee on top of whatever else the deal is, right? So, like if it's a $5,000 deal, then you would just negotiate a little bit more to account for early pay. So, this is how early pay works. You just send an invoice. And if your invoice qualifies, you'll be offered early pay. I've asked the Lumanu team, like, okay, well, what are the qualifications and how many people qualify? And I was told that most people qualified. Like, it's not a particularly challenging thing to get. So that's awesome. Also, you then accept the early pay offer in the app or via text, which is pretty cool. And the app is also just online. And then once it's accepted, they verify with the brand or the client to make sure they intend to pay the invoice and work is complete. So that happens just as if it would if you were invoicing them. And then the money is instantly paid to your Lumanu account, and that's it. So the fees also pretty nominal. So it's 2.9% of the invoice amount. That's it, guys. We're not talking about like 50% of the fee. So when I was talking about the fact that you could negotiate to account for this fee, you just add like an extra $500 or of course whatever the overall amount is, but you bake in 2.9% more or call it 3. And you just always make sure that like that is carved out and utilized for early pay. Think of it as a business expense. Think of it as the opportunity to save time in all the back and forth that is the issue of creator payments. So, huge, wanted to mention that. So, another really clutch thing about Lumanu is that they're actually able to send 1099Ks to all creators who receive $600 or more in payments from Lumanu during the calendar year. That's something that if you're a talent manager, you're supposed to do. There are some rules around like when you're supposed to do it or not. It's like, I think if you're incorporated or not incorporated, how you file taxes, but most talent managers are responsible for doing that. You no longer have to do it. Lumanu is actually going to be responsible for doing it, which is huge. So, in addition to the early pay feature, which is clutch, they save you even more time because they actually handle all that annoying tax paperwork for managers, for agencies, and for brands. Basically, they facilitate 1099s so you don't have to. They're basically designated like a third party settlement organization. That just means that they're responsible for handling the tax reporting requirements. And because payments are sent to creators from Lumanu, they don't need to submit W-9s to the brands any longer. And you aren't required to issue a 1099 to them. So Lumanu takes care of all of that for you, which is huge. So, another thing that I absolutely love about Lumanu is that they are current and with it in that they have all of these integrations. So, for my business, I'll just speak personally. We use QuickBooks and we also use Zapier for a lot of automations and workflow management processes. So basically, Lumanu just fits right into your existing processes. They're compatible with so many accounts payable solutions, QuickBooks. Zapier is an account payable solution, but I use it and they're compatible with it. Melio, I've heard a lot of people use Oracle, Tipalti, and a lot more. It took me like 2 minutes to connect my QuickBooks to it. And then every time I send an invoice, it's syncing with QuickBooks, which for me, honestly, if they didn't have that, it would just be a deal breaker for me. Like, I don't want to invest in another product that is not going to just be compatible with everything I've already set up. So, like any tool or product that I share with you guys that has an integration, you'd be hard pressed to hear me recommend anything that doesn't have integrations. One of the last couple of things that I also want to mention about why I'm like truly obsessed with Lumanu is when you invoice the third party, let's say it's a brand that you're working with and they're not in the Lumanu system already, they actually have the ability to say how they want to pay. So they could either pay, I think it's via PayPal or ACH. There's a number of different ways that they can select how they want to pay. And when I've invoiced people in the past, I usually have a preference towards ACH. Why? Because it's the least expensive and the least amount of a hit on my business is bottom line. But Lumanu, as long as they're not in the system yet, they actually can select how they want to pay, whether it's PayPal or whatever's like natively comfortable for them. And that actually doesn't affect your bottom line at all. Like, I'm not sitting there being like, ooh, they're going to pay through credit card. Oh, crap. It's going to take like 5% instead of like ACH takes $1 or whatever it is in the system. So they get to choose, which is nice from their user's perspective. And from yours, you're not like worrying that they're going to select to pay via credit card because you're going to be hit with the highest fee. Lumanu takes care of all of that even for you. Anyways, there's so much that Lumanu does. And you hear me talk about this all the time on the show. I love a company that really goes niche. And so when it comes to Lumanu, they first covered the whitelisting space. They had that nailed down, and people very much to this day still use them and love them for whitelisting. Now they're owning the creator payment space. I just think everything that they're doing is incredible. The people on their team are really smart and very, very capable. And also, like, not just on the tech side, they really get influencer marketing, which I think is imperative. And it's surprisingly rare for people in the influencer tech space. Some of them like err more towards the technology side and they just don't get the business. And then the product just kind of sucks. Anyways, Lumanu is truly a really strong platform. And also, I know that they're like adding new features and stuff as well. They're super responsive, which I love. I'm looking on their website right now. So they have like a chat widget when you're signed in. And I actually tested it the other day and I was like, how long do you guys take to get back to support tickets? I swear they wrote me back within like 5 minutes or less. It might have even been significantly less than that. And those notifications go to your email. So you don't have to like sit on their website chat widget forever and wait for a response. I love a platform that has good support. Anyways, Lumanu, I can go on and on. There are other features that it has as well. But essentially, this is something that I honestly wish existed when I had my agency because I was just using QuickBooks alone and using like the invoicing features of QuickBooks, but everybody was using their own system. And it was just like one of the biggest headaches of my agency was having our creators get paid on time, and get paid efficiently. And Lumanu is like actively solving all of those problems. So I highly recommend their tool. So I will leave a link in the show notes and description box so that if you want to give them a try, you can. And I hope also that you go to our Best in Influencer Tech event because they are one of the companies that are going to be featured. It's October 25th of 22. Go check out our website. I'll link that as well, but it's iamwim.com/tech. And they will walk you through the tool because I probably forgot a few things. I'm sort of just going over the things that I think are magical because if somebody sort of helps me save time and gets me paid, they are considered magical. All right, guys, have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, we gotta have you back. Check out our website for more ways to get involved, including all the information you need about joining our collective. You can check out all the information at iamwim.com. Leave us a review, a rating, but the most important thing that we could ask you to do is to share this podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Tune in next week.